Thanks for tuning in to the Diaphragm Dynasty. I'm back with another hot topic. In this topic, I will be discussing Monica. Now, the singer Monica from Atlanta released her solo project, Miss Thang, when she was around 15 years old. And I was thinking to myself, she released such a great album at such a young age, in the middle of her teenage years, so to speak. But was that Miss Thang album the best teen solo debut R&B album of all time? Now, you have to think about what it compares to as far as being in that category. So when I say teen, I mean anywhere under 18 somebody who released an album, R&B album, solo debut album around that time. I mean, not around that time, around the same age. So there were a couple of albums, well, several albums I found that was in the running. So Brandy's self-titled album, Brandy, of course, when she was 15. Aaliyah's Age Ain't Nothing But a Number when she was 15. Mario's self-titled debut album when he was 15. And Chris Brown's album when he was 16. Now, Usher was 15 when he released his debut album as well. I don't count it in a discussion of this because it was nowhere near Usher's best work. These other artists, I can make an argument that their first albums were better than any other album that they put out, except for with the exception of Brandy. We know that Brandy's Angel in Disguise album was probably her best album. But as far as like Aaliyah and Mario and Chris Brown for sure, they're and then Monica to a great respects. Um, her first album was probably the best work because I don't know if it's because of the songwriting. I'm assuming because and just the feel of the music and the production and what the songs did to the heartstrings is what I'm going off of. So I didn't count that Usher's first album. I'm pretty sure it had great songwriters on it, but it was way ahead of its time, especially content matter and stuff like that. Monica's, you could say, was too, but it didn't talk about anything sexual. It was mostly just talking about love and losing love. Even at 15, it was just unbelievable for her to be able to talk about that. I'm pretty sure she didn't write that stuff, um, but all of these albums were ahead of their time and have a ton of replay value to them, and that's what a huge thing I'm going off of. These songs could have easily been written for older artists around that time, but they ended up luckily enough to have these songs and have these albums. But like I talked about before, all these albums are great. And Monica's Miss Things album was legendary. And I think it's underappreciated and undervalued and underdiscussed in the realm of R&B circles. Now, when I discovered this Monica album, I was around a teenager myself. I want to say I was around 16 or 17 myself. But I was able to understand the music and what it does and what it meant to R&B and how powerful it was. Monica is one of my favorite singers anyway because of her voice. I believe she was always a better singer than Brandy, but I'll get into that into another discussion that I'll be doing later in this Diaphragm Dynasty world. But Monica has a beautiful voice and is very angelic and is very passionate and is very believable. So what she does is amazing. But the only person the only album that I can put with Monica's Miss Things album, as far as a teenager releasing R&B a solo album, is Chris Brown's first album. Now, Chris Brown's first album doesn't have a lot of skips on it, has a lot of poppy stuff on it, but because he had to have stuff for the radio back then, back in '05, but it had a lot of great hits. I think Chris Brown's solo debut album was more successful, of course, than Monica's because it had more of a push. Um, but I believe Monica's album is better, and I do believe she had the best solo debut album for a teen in R&B history. Now, and she didn't even reach her prime yet as far as singing because she probably was still going through vocal changes and things like that. So her voice did get better. One of my favorite songs of her is "For You I Will" from the Space Jam soundtrack, which is an amazing soundtrack that I definitely have to cover eventually. That's one of the better R&B soundtracks or R&B bass soundtracks because it had rap on it too. But as far as the basis, it was very good. But Brady's album was good as well. I'll probably put that one at third because she had hits like "I Want to Be Down," "Best Friend," "Baby," "Broken Hearted" with Wanya Morris from Boys to Men. But Aaliyah had classics as well on that first album. She had "Back and Forth," "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number," and "At Your Best You Will Love." That "At Your Best You Will Love" is one of the greatest R&B songs of all time. It's probably definitely in top 50, top 30. But that Miss Thing album was in a class of its own. "Why I Love You So Much," one of the best love songs ever made in R&B history. Not just for a woman, for a man, for anybody, for pop, country, you name it. It was one of the best songs. It's in those greats. Just One of Them Days, Don't Take It Personal. Another great song that she put together. One of the songs that's undeniably great that can transcend cultures and genres and beliefs. Before You Walk Out of My Life, a passionate song. Another song that's talking about, love lost and unrequited love, so to speak. One of those greats of all time. So those three songs alone just make her solo album as a teen, one of the best in history. And just not for a teen, but just solo albums, period. Most artists don't have three hits like that in their whole career, yet alone on one album. And she had that on one album. And a lot of that contributed to Dallas Austin's writing and production on this album. He did a lot of writing and producing. And Dallas Austin, I'll be covering him on the Behind the Pen edition as well. He did a lot of contributions for artists like TLC. A lot of contributions, especially early on in TLC's career, I believe through the first two albums at least. But he did a lot of heavy lifting as far as writing goes and production. Very amazing sound, 90s sounding sound, helped create a decade of great music. But this is definitely the best debut album from an R&B artist, from a young R&B artist. And Monica's one of the best in the business that's not talked about enough. So, as always, until next time, I'll see you next time.